people view and treat LinkedIn like Google. They're taking a demo request, which is this high intent offer that converted on Google Ads, and now they're running it to their audience on LinkedIn. People are not converting. They spend some money, they turn it off, and they say, hey, LinkedIn doesn't work. How segmented you need to be and how narrow you need to be on LinkedIn versus other channels. So the analogy I usually give clients is, with LinkedIn, you're trying to burn the pond, not the ocean. There's a silent majority that we all forget about on LinkedIn, and they're absolutely critical for your success. And they're the lurkers. Lurkers are the people that never engage with your post.
Yeah.
They don't click, they don't comment, but they see it and they're receiving the information. And for context, with LinkedIn, a good click-through rate is 1%. So that means 99% of the people are not engaging. Those are the lurkers.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we kill LinkedIn because we don't account for the lurkers. Welcome to episode 4 of Performance Therapy. We're going to be talking about the LinkedIn ads mistakes that are costing you deals. This one is going to be a tactical masterclass. So we're going to rant and share it therapy style on all the nitty gritty around LinkedIn ads and the mistakes that we see. Gonzalo, are you ready for this one?
I think so, yeah.
All right, let's talk about what comes to mind, when people are coming in and they're saying, oh, I ran ads on LinkedIn, it didn't work. Like, where does your mind go in terms of the mistakes they're making?
Targeting and misalignment between targeting and your offer. That's the first things that come to mind for me. Targeting, because it's pretty clear if you're targeting the wrong people, the rest doesn't really matter, right? Mm-hmm. And the offer matters too, because if you're targeting a cold audience with a super high intent offer, yeah, some of them will raise their hand, but most of them will just ignore it, or they'll put a like on your ad, the ad looks cool, but then they don't click, or they click and they scroll through the site, but then you don't see the conversion, then you're burning money. Mm-hmm. So those are the first things for me.
And it's like, I think one of the mistakes that I see is, which connects with what you're saying, is people view and treat LinkedIn like Google. Where they're coming from Google Ads and they're used to this last click, direct conversion. And then they're treating LinkedIn under the same vein and the same lens, where they're taking a demo request, which is this high intent offer that converted on Google Ads. And now they're running it to their audience on LinkedIn. People are not converting. They spend some money, they turn it off, and they say, hey, LinkedIn doesn't work. When fundamentally the strategy wasn't there in place in terms of what you're saying around the offer in relation to the audience and where they are, right? And making sure that those two things are congruent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big one for sure. And is there any other thing that comes to mind for you?
Yeah.
Like a big one?
I think the other one is just the targeting, which you talked about, but more specifically around this, like, how segmented you need to be and how narrow you need to be on LinkedIn versus other channels. So the analogy I usually give clients is, with LinkedIn, you're trying to burn the pond, not the ocean. So for context, like when you run ads on Meta or you run ads on YouTube, you're trying to cast a very wide net. You're saying, hey, Meta, find the people who matter for me, right? Or YouTube, etc. And then your ad is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of attracting the right person. And you have such low distribution costs that it makes sense, Matt, like, economically speaking, to take that approach, and it works out for you. Mm-hmm. But then you go on a platform like LinkedIn, where the average CPM is well over $20, and then you're trying to take the same approach, and just mathematically speaking, it's just too expensive to do that, right? This broad targeting approach. So with LinkedIn, it's more about, instead of burning the ocean and going after like this million-size audience, you're trying to burn the pond, where you're trying to go after a very, very, very specific size, like let's say 50,000, right? But ideally, less than 250,000 is like my general rule of thumb. Now, obviously, there's exceptions. If you're at 270, but like that 270 is the cream of the crop, then by all means.
And you have the budget.
And you have the budget, but it should be as low as relevantly possible. The other kind of catch-22 about LinkedIn too is, the smaller the size, usually the greater the cost. So there's also that little bit of a dilemma as well. And what you want to do is you essentially want to go after like a very, very small group of people that matter the most. Where imagine like you're going after these VPs at X companies. And again, like if one of those deals close, you just paid for your ad budget for like half a year. Mm-hmm. That's when LinkedIn gets fun, And then what you're trying to do, not to nerd out too much, but really what you're doing is like you're manufacturing celebrity. So in their eyes, they're like, man, this guy or this brand is everywhere. They're crushing it. Every time I go into LinkedIn, I see them in my feed. You know what I mean? I can't not see them. And in their mind, they're just like, this person must be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, every single month to just keep showing up in my feed. And the reality is like, you're just like a little startup, you got some funds and you're just being really smart about your strategy and who you're going after. But to these people, you're like massive, and this is like one of the things that's like so cool about ads is you can create influence, right? Where, I mean, I've never done this, but like sometimes I have this idea where I'm like, I have one of my best friends, he's a personal trainer in Miami. And I'm like, I don't want to tell him, but like, I just want to like grab his business and then just like run ads around him in like a small, like 15-mile radius of where he lives. And he would just become like a celebrity in that 15-mile radius. You know what I mean? Like run ads on Meta, run ads on TikTok, on YouTube, etc. Like just hit everyone in that 15-mile radius from everywhere. And then when he starts going outside, people are going to be like, aren't you that personal trainer? You know what I mean? Like just to mess with him. But it's the same thing with like B2B and these big companies. You're basically trying to get in front of this very small group of people and just hit them from all these different angles, right? And manufacture this celebrity. Now, again, like we kind of reference like the Spider-Man quote, with great power comes great responsibility, because it's not what you do, it's how you do it. If you do this approach and you don't do it well, then what ends up happening is you become like spam and annoyance, right? Where now you're just like, oh my God, these people again, you know what I mean? And you just tune them out.
You start getting ignored too. Ad blindness is real. Like and you feel it too. Like you're scrolling through your feed, Instagram stories, even LinkedIn, and you kind of just ignore the ads unless they're catchy, they grab your attention. And that's one piece that brands do wrong, right? But that's another thing too. Yes, you get spammy. I think being spammy is worse than ad blindness. If anything, you're just getting ignored.
Because you're still being recognized.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, if anything, you're just getting ignored. But if people start having a bad perception about your brand, oh, these guys are always here, annoying, like irrelevant, like it's bad, because when it's time, even when it's time to buy for them, we will have a bad connotation. Maybe it's fabricated in their mind and maybe not, whatever, but that's what it is, right? Yeah. So that's a big disconnect when you were talking about people transitioning from Google to LinkedIn, that on Google, people are actively searching for a solution, even if they're not searching for you. And on LinkedIn, on Meta, on TikTok, whatever, you're going after them. So for them to pay attention to you, it's a whole nother story, right?
Yeah.
It's a whole nother battle. You can't take it for granted.
And you can never lose perspective of where they are in relation of their buyer's journey. Ultimately, we never truly fundamentally know, hey, are they problem aware, solution aware? There's different like providers who sell intent data, and they're like, hey,
that's what I was thinking.
Like these are purchase accounts, and we know it's fundamentally wrong, because like we've tested, not to name names, but we've tested like multiple intent providers like stacked up against each other with a demo ad. And if what they're saying is true, and the demo ad was nice, etc., it should convert, but it didn't. Right? So like fundamentally, like, that's fake. So this is where the offer, which you kind of touched on, is super important to kind of help gauge, hey, where is this person? So for example, like when we talk about targeting and going after this very small group of people, we're talking using account lists, right? Leveraging job titles. So it's super precise. We're getting in front of the people that matter most. And then if those people are not converting, the solution isn't, maybe I should try job functions.
Yeah.
It's, what is the offer? What's the carrot on the other side of the stick that I'm offering to these people, right? So that I can get it to work, so that they can convert. And not to like rant too hard here, but this is like the magic and the thing that I love the most was like, how can you convert cold traffic? And the game of converting cold traffic, you know what I mean? And I kind of see that as like the Olympics of advertising, of like, how can I go to a stranger, build brand affinity and trust in a very short period of time, and then get them to take an action that is favorable for my business. And that all comes down to like the offer, right? And making sure that the offer you're picking is congruent with the audience. And for most B2B companies, when they're running ads on LinkedIn, like they're starting with the demo, the offer is nowhere near close for that. They don't convert. and then they stop running ads and they say,
Yeah,
oh,
LinkedIn doesn't work.
LinkedIn doesn't work, which is like, well, dude, you're, it's like not even close, you know? It's, you know, it always, and also too, like another one too is Meta. People are like, oh, Meta doesn't work. It's like, they all work to a certain extent. It's just how well will it work for you, right? And the execution piece. So then we kind of ranted a bit on targeting and the importance of that and aligning your offer with the audience and where they are. Let's talk about creative. What are some big mistakes you're seeing with creative to make LinkedIn work?
Templated creative. That's a mistake. Like those types of ads that could be coming from, I don't know, AdConversion, any other agency. To me, that doesn't say much because I mean, I just ignore those, right?
Yeah.
So creatives that are, I don't even know if there's an adjective for that, like an adjective, like not, maybe not attractive or not appealing enough. That's a mistake because when we talk about reverse engineering your metrics in another episode, this is also too, like you need to reverse engineer what needs to happen for them to, first of all, engage with your ad and go to your website. Then first of all, you need to stop the scroll. If they don't stop, you already lose the battle.
Yeah.
Even if they stop the scroll, you have like what, 2, 3, 4 seconds maybe with an image ad for them to actually check it out. And for some, 2 seconds might be a lot. For, I don't know, it depends. But it's when you start reverse engineering where you see brands going wrong. First of all, if you create that ad blindness, people just start ignoring you because all ads look the same. They can't distinguish you. Or they even know you exist to the extent that, like when we talk about the offer and the misalignment, for them to actually stop what you're doing to engage. So that's the first one for me. And then also to like, okay, you have 2 seconds, 4 seconds max if you're lucky. You need to make a good use of that time. And some people try to put, I don't know, multiple call to actions in the same ad, multiple messages, right?
Yeah.
They try to do too much and that's because they know they have a short time. I don't even think it's attention span. It's just how people behave. And LinkedIn now is delivering ads like what, 70% of them on mobile, 60 depending on the campaigns. So people are on mobile, maybe they're scrolling while listening to music, whatever the case might be, on public transportation, watching TV, whatever. So you actually need to make a good use of your time. And when we talk about creative, I think you kind of need to reverse engineering all those ingredients because first of all, if they don't stop the scroll again, you lose the battle. I mean, there's not even a battle to be fought in the first place. And then it's okay. The messaging needs to resonate. And it doesn't necessarily need to drive a click. It can be an engagement or even just ignoring the ad, or I mean, not ignoring, but seeing the ad, reading it, and then continue with your life. And that's fine. Like 90%, 99% of the people do it anyway. But as long as your messaging sticks and it keeps connecting with them, that's how you're creating a good experience. So the next time they see one of your ads, they already know a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah.
And you can kind of continue that experience in feeds. So you don't need to be relying on the creative to drive people to the site. The creative needs to be done to help tell your story without like knowing how people behave on that social network. If it's LinkedIn in this case, how they behave. People don't go there to, oh, let me see if ad conversion is showing up on my feed today, right?
Yeah.
They don't do it. They go to engage, to comment, to see some drama nowadays.
Yeah.
And oh, actually ad conversion showed up. This makes sense. Let me click or let me put a like or oh, awesome, engaged. Check.
There's a silent majority that we all forget about on LinkedIn, and they're absolutely critical for your success, and they're the lurkers. And most people are lurkers. Lurkers are the people that never engage with your post.
Yeah.
They don't click, they don't comment, they don't do anything, but they see it and they're receiving the information. And for context with LinkedIn, a good click-through rate is 1% as like a baseline, right? So that means 99% of the people are not engaging. Those are the lurkers.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we kill LinkedIn because we don't account for the lurkers. And this is why it's so important to measure the halo effect of LinkedIn, because it's fundamentally an awareness channel. That's its strength. So measuring your directly attributed performance, so people who just go to your website directly, and organic, how many people are searching your brand name. And it's really interesting if you guys are listening to this, you're just getting started with LinkedIn, like take your baselines pre and post, So if you just started running LinkedIn today, just take a look at like, what was my organic search traffic before, my direct traffic before, and then compare it after running your LinkedIn ads for, the same time period. and see if you notice a measurable difference, right? And then this goes back to like that pipe to spend number. It's one of my favorite metrics for paid media success, which is just, it's a measure of efficiency. So for every dollar I put in, how much am I getting back? And then monitoring that blended performance, you know, month over month, quarter over quarter, is really, really cool. We touched on it a little bit around, you mentioned reverse engineering, Gonzalo, and like reverse engineering ads. And I want to get super tactical. Let's reverse engineer together what a great ad actually looks like. I'll kick us off because like one thing that's like in my head is, the first thing is great ads match the placement that they're a part of. So for context,
Don't look like ads.
exactly. So if I'm running ads on LinkedIn, which is what we're talking about today, the ad looks like it belongs on LinkedIn. That's the first fundamental thing. And with LinkedIn, thankfully, most people don't get that wrong. It's more like Meta, where you see people using like images and stories, and like the dimensions are cropped off and it doesn't make sense.
Reels.
Yeah, things like that, you know, just like fundamental flaws. But you need to make sure that the ad looks native to the platform and it matches the placement. So like one super tactical give is, when in your creative image, if you put a CTA button, it like subconsciously, if I see your ad and I see the CTA button in your ad, I already know it's an ad now. It's like a small little tell. And also it's not necessary, because in the actual ad format, again, making your ad native to the platform, LinkedIn is already giving you a CTA button, right? Where you can put whatever you want, learn more, etc., and then go, you know, take the next step. What else comes to your mind?
The messaging is super important. Like, not putting a lot of information in the ad is important for me, because again, if you go back to now that you have that metric dwell time, people engage 2 seconds, 3 seconds with an ad. So the messaging needs to be clear, needs to shadow. Like, you can't just, for example, I see a lot of people saying, oh, you need to call out the problem that your audience has. Awesome, that's perfect. But now you also need to position your product as a solution. And not directly like, oh, you're struggling with this, here's that conversion. Not like that. It needs to look organic in a way, but people need to be able to tie the dots. And I think it's one of the episodes you have, like learning from the pros with Joe, right? Joseph Hill, where he's saying that's not your audience job to figure out what you do, it's your own. And that stick with me, because that's what brands try to do. Oh, let me call out a problem here. Now let me talk about my product. And now you're expecting that someone on the other side of the screen that engages with 300 ads, whatever, a day or a week, to remember that these guys that called out this problem here are the same that offer this solution. When in reality, you should be the one connecting the dots for them, making it easy, because they don't care about you. They might have a problem, maybe they don't, whatever stage of the funnel they're in, but you need to do a good job when it comes to the creative to hit the messaging piece. And again, ideally it should be aligned with data that we have from sales calls, speaking with the sales teams. I'm not even touching that piece because that's a whole other topic. But to me, it should be clear, straightforward. It needs to call out, ideally calling out a problem, presenting your product as a solution. And don't try to say too much, just try to say enough. And that's like a rule of thumb when we talk about, oh, how long should be my video? I don't know, like ideally as short as possible, right?
But without losing the point.
Yeah, as long as you're conveying your message, if it takes 10 seconds, if it needs to take 30, that's fine. But try to do it in a shorter length as possible.
Yeah.
And the same applies to the ads, like be straightforward, be clear. And that's one of the biggest things to me.
That's a really powerful point. On that note too, around messaging, that just like comes to my head, is the job of the ad is to sell the click. Is usually the way, like, it's a quote I heard a long time ago of how I frame it. So the ad isn't there to educate to somebody like all the benefits and the reasons and the pain points and everything of like why they should buy your software in one ad, you know. Like, there's no way. It's there to first and foremost catch their attention, right? Cause that pattern interrupt. And messaging is huge at causing pattern interrupts. Like the analogy I like to give is, imagine you're in a subway, right? And it's busy. Like, imagine you're in New York, and like the New York subway, right? It's thousands of people walking by. It's loud, it's hectic, etc. And then you just like get on the top of the stairwell and you say, Gonzalo. And all of the Gonzalos in the subway look back, right? And they look at you. It's like calling somebody out by their name, the message, the words you use is the most powerful thing you can do. As of today, you can't call people out by their name because we don't know who they are, right? And also that's creepy.
There's some
You know,
personalization.
but
if you
I
remember
think
that
yeah,
test,
but I think
but
that's
it didn't work.
that's where like AI and ads is going. Where like you're gonna like you ever seen the movie Minority Report?
I don't
I think it's
think
with
so.
Tom Cruise. But it's basically like people get served ads just for them, and it's like, "Hi Silvio," and it's like this was anyways. But like that's where we're going, you know. Unfortunately, but the way you can do that in a non-creepy way is instead of saying, you know, "Hey Gonzalo," you can say, "Hey B2B marketers, hey cybersecurity leaders," right? And now that'll resonate with them where they're like, "Ah, that's me." Right? It sounds so basic, but it's so fundamentally powerful in terms of capturing their attention. Because especially if you're running ads on LinkedIn and you nailed the targeting, right? You're using an account list, you're using a job title, you're already 90% of the way there. Now it's just how do I get that person to pay attention? So that's like the first fundamental piece is it must grab attention. The second piece, which I think in terms of reverse engineering success of like what do winning ads look like, is how does the creative actually look, right? What's the creative concept that we're using here? And this is like one of the biggest misses, you know, of like B2B, because for the most part, most B2B companies, you can get away with bad copy because you're dealing with like short form copy, 1 to 2 lines, right? There's not a lot of context, blah, blah. But the image itself or the video, the asset, the creative just completely misses the mark. So rant with me here on creative concepts.
Yeah. And that's the piece when we're talking about at the beginning where all ads look the same. And now you've seen like across your feed, it's common to see that concept like the notepad that look like Apple Notes.
Okay, yeah.
And it's cool, but now it's starting to get overused. And that's the thing, like at first it starts working, and even with some of our clients it's working, but you need to continue pushing the boundaries. And that's what some companies get wrong. It's like, oh, okay, these guys are doing this, let's follow and try to do it as well. And maybe for their audience it doesn't work, you know? And that's, to me, that's a big one when it comes to creative concepts. And we're going back and forth with our head of creative, right? Like the team needs to keep testing new stuff, not just what's working with other clients. Also knowing too, by the way, that for example, if one client is targeting HR leaders and the other is targeting cybersecurity leaders, these guys, like it's fine if you replicate concepts, because if it's working, I mean, they won't see both, so they won't see the same ads from the same companies, so it's fine. But you need to continue pushing the boundaries. And sometimes I know brand teams get in the way, but continuing to try new things and looking examples from organic posts and stuff you see while you're scrolling on your Instagram, on your Facebook, if
reverse engineering trends, that's a big one. Yeah, at the end of the day, it's social media, right? You're advertising on a social media platform that happens to be LinkedIn. So if you can take an existing trend and you can, you know, rework it as a concept, that's powerful.
I'm thinking about that ad where the guy is racing the cardboard, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And then everyone started using it with different copy.
Exactly.
That's a cool one.
Yeah, little things like that.
It goes along the way for a time, but
yeah, or like I'm thinking about when ChatGPT came out and people started to use like a conversation of like replicating it, like, hey ChatGPT, where's the best place to learn B2B advertising? And then it'll be like AdConversion. That was a subtle plug.
That's a good one, because your team needs to be agile. And if you're taking 2 weeks to build creatives or 3 weeks, by the time that ChatGPT conversation gets pushed to an ad, the trend is over, you know?
Yeah.
And again, like when we're targeting, and us as B2B marketers, we might feel like we're in this bubble where, oh, we're always seeing these cool ads, but like I see my girlfriend's LinkedIn feed and she works in finance and it has nothing to do with mine.
It's so
documented
crazy.
ads, guides, fill out this form, like it's insane. So we're spoiled.
Yeah.
And that's why sometimes we feel, oh, we should be doing better. But when we're targeting HR leaders, maybe their feed has nothing to do with ours.
Yeah.
So one ad that might seem overused for us as marketers, for them it's like a fresh breath of fresh air.
And we're in a super competitive space, right?
Exactly.
More people are innovating, more people are with it, etc. So it's like the barrier to entry to only continue to rise over time. Like this, it doesn't get easier from here, right? It continues to get harder.
When you're targeting marketers, it's hard because of that. Like they're smart, first of all. They also know like, And one thing though, and off topic, but when you're targeting marketers, the cool thing is when you have the how did you hear about us field, they actually collaborate because they feel the pain.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But for sure, like creative concepts, it's about trying new things, seeing how you can plug in trends, and again, try to disrupt the pattern.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like if you're using self-reported attribution, that's really powerful for LinkedIn. So it's like a single text field where people can just write whatever they want on how they heard about you. And you get a lot of interesting insights from that. Like just the self-reported attribution plus the blended performance, right, from the revenue dashboard, you already have a really good sense of like what is working, what is not, because you'll start to see more people say LinkedIn, right? And obviously like people will put some weird stuff in there too. But by and large, like you get some really like nuanced insights. Like I've heard people, like we do a lot on Reddit now, and people will be like, oh, this Reddit subthread.
Specific.
Like super specific. But then on the flip side, you have people who just be like, internet. And now it's like, whoa, like what a novel insight.
Thanks for the info.
Yeah, thank you so much.
But is there any other like big mistake you see? Because it's common to see those types of posts on LinkedIn. Oh, I audited this account spending 50K a month and they're doing this. Boom, boom, boom. If you have to give like a five bullet points on the biggest mistakes.
Yeah, rapid fire, biggest mistakes I see on LinkedIn. Number one is the budget does not match the audience. So they're spreading their budget way too thin, right? Or the account list is way too large for the budget. When you run the math, you take the number of accounts, right? You divide it by the cost per CPM, et cetera. You basically realize like each person is getting like a fraction of an impression. It just makes no sense. That's the first fundamental one.
Yeah.
The second one is they're not using exclusions. So they're not excluding within the audience as well. Equally important to who you target is who you exclude. Make sure you're not showing up to interns, students, etc., competitors, employees, retired, salespeople. I mean, maybe that doesn't apply to you.
Yeah.
But make sure your exclusions are dialed in. I would say that's the second one. The third one is like what we talked about around creative, right? Make sure you're actually creating a pattern interrupt. And the way I like to think about it is like each creative is like telling a little story, and that the story is actually complete and you're not trying to just sell your product in the ad. You're trying to pique curiosity and get the click so then they can take the next step in that story with you, right? And you have all these little stories that are just different points of perspective, right, along that strategy of what you're putting into play. The third one is not enough variability around the creative concept testing. So really make sure you're testing radically dramatic different concepts. So for context, like most people, they'll launch a campaign and they'll have 3 versions of ads and it's like red, green, blue. And it's like, but it's the same fundamental ad. It's just red, green, blue. And it's like, sure, but in terms of not just ROI, but ROE, return on effort, you'd actually be better off if instead you did a before and after, a meme, and like a product mock-up.
Yeah.
Radically, dramatically different looks and feels, right? That paint a different perspective to the user. And then now you can start to get some data. Oh, before and afters consistently work well with this audience, right? And then you can lean into that. And now you can remix. I think remixing is a really important skill that B2B marketers should flex more, right? How do I take an existing thing and just say it in a different way, right? And when you have an ad that works well, a lot of scaling is just taking that same ad and just remixing it, right?
Yeah.
And just telling it in different perspectives and different angles, et cetera. And then the next one that comes to my mind is bidding, which is, making sure that you're not overspending for what you're paying for. So just to like touch on that, any thoughts on bidding and like specifically around like conversions and lead gen campaigns?
Yeah, by default, we've been seeing good success with manual bids. And from my experience, when we were doing maximized delivery, it was just overspending. That's the truth. There are some cool use cases, don't get me wrong. And I got blasted on a LinkedIn post because I forgot a couple of them. Like when you need to spend the budget like in 10 days, it's like a short campaign, you actually need to deliver. You're not really worried. And in B2B SaaS, that's usually the case. Brands need to exhaust their budget because in the next quarter they have a new one. So there are some cool use cases, don't get me wrong. But if you're looking for efficiency, manual bid still is outperforming from what I've seen with our clients. So like when you set up a campaign, you see LinkedIn giving you some suggestions like, oh, the average range is between, $1 and $1.50. So you can start on the low side of things with $1, but you just need to monitor it closely for the first few days. That's also too, by the way, and maybe that's a tip where you shouldn't be launching ads on a Friday just because you get the weekend.
Yeah.
Especially if you're using manual bids, you might get there on Monday and you didn't spend anything or you spend too much depending on the bidding. But yeah, like take what LinkedIn is suggesting based on your audience, if you don't have any data before, but don't feel like, oh, if the average bid is 2.5, like you see on Reddit, where it's actually based on how much you're paying, let me put 2.6. So I outbid everyone. That's not how it works on LinkedIn, at least. So you can play it on the low side of things. And then depending on, let's say if you have $50 a day and you're spending 40 with a $1 bid, you start increasing it slightly until you even out the pacing, right?
Yeah. And on the note of bidding, you also get different cost dynamics around ad formats.
Yeah.
So for context, like there's not just creative concepts that you can test, but there's also ad formats. So like thought leader ads, which is huge right now, right? And it's performing extremely well because it's native to platform, great distribution costs, etc. Then you have document ads, you have carousel ads, you have video ads. You have all these different ad formats too, conversation ads that you can use to also optimize and experiment with in relation to whatever the thing is that you're trying to get that campaign to do. So this was a lot. I hope it was helpful, everyone. We got super tactical on the nitty gritty around LinkedIn ads. We'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks so much for watching this episode. If today's combo hit home for you and you want to go deeper, check out AdConversion.com. You'll find free courses, a killer advertising community, and if you're ready to scale, we'd love to work with you.